What's up, everyone? It's your girl Tammy, aka the Cannabis Cutie, and I'm back for another episode in the Advocate series on how to be an advocate. And with me today, I have the lovely Natasha of one of my favorite brands, Pussy Weed.
Hi.
Welcome, welcome. So, Natasha, you are a cannabis advocate.
I like to call myself one, yes.
I would say you're definitely one. And can you tell us a little bit about Pussy Weed?
So Pussy Weed is at its core, mostly apparel and accessories and content. And we started it in college with my co-founders, Hannah and Ava. And it was really at a time when cannabis was starting to become so popular on the West Coast and in Colorado, and it was starting to become a little more mainstream in New York, but the war on drugs part of it was not changing. And we wanted to push towards legalization because having a market and like widespread weed but people still in jail is not the kind of community we want to build.
So your advocacy all started in New York.
Yes.
Okay. And do you still, now that New York is kind of the hot spot or the focus right now, are you doing anything over there in regards to helping with that?
Yeah, so I'm still on the board of New York City Normal and like doing a lot of just like education work through that, which is cool to still be able to be a part of East Coast efforts even though I'm here.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's still a lot to do because legalization happened, but like it hasn't been activated.
Yeah.
And so there's still a lot to be decided. And like this gets kind of to the nitty-gritty, like nerdy part about New York legalization. But basically in the way that it was set up, the governor was given a lot of deciding power of who gets to sit on the like management board. And the current governor is an interim governor because Kathy Hochul had to step in when Cuomo had to resign. And this November is like the official gubernatorial race, and the conservative like opponent is doing surprisingly well.
Okay.
Because people don't love her. And like weed could take a huge step back if like anything were to happen. So this election is going to be like kind of a big deal when it comes to policies because nothing's been set into place yet. And I think we were all hoping that things would be a lot more solid before this moment. And that's why they're like rushing a lot of stuff about the licensing, but the licenses are all conditional.
Yeah.
Which people don't know about. And that can change at any time if the condition change.
So it could absolutely, everything that's being celebrated and that's being worked on can just kind of go down.
Like on one aspect, yes, like on the activation of the like compliant market. But the part that's really incredible is the like incarceration side of things. So many records were just automatically expunged.
Yeah.
But like Rikers is still not closed as they said it would be.
Okay.
And like there's still a lot that needs to happen on a social justice level, but like when people talk about how legalization in New York is bad and like is lame and like it's so slow, the part that is really cool and so incredible is that like you can no longer get arrested for consuming in public.
Yeah.
And that is so huge and like equitable because not everybody has access to a private home where you can consume.
Correct.
And so that's huge.
Yeah.
Regardless of like if you can't have your dispensary and it's not making the millions that we thought it was gonna make.
Yeah.
To like not get arrested is huge.
That is huge. And you make a great point. I hear that the smell of New York smells dank.
Yeah. I mean, it always smelled dank, but it's like pretty outrageous now. Which like
I'm not mad at it.
Yeah, I'm not mad at it. I'm just like my parents didn't used to know what weed smelled like, and so it was easy to get away with stuff.
Yeah.
And now they do, because they're like, "Oh, it smells like down the street," and I'm like, "Yeah, guess you know
I
what weed
smell like
is."
outside.
Yeah,
Has
I'm
your
like,
parents ever told you that when you came in the house, you smell like outside?
yeah, like I used to smoke a lot of cigarettes in high school, and I would always just say like, "Oh, it's because my friend's parents smoked,"
Yeah,
and
it was you.
yeah, like that was like such an easy excuse, like because all of our parents smoked. So
I
just
love it.
terrible, absolutely
So
terrible.
you use a lot of your arts and crafts. And I use the word crafts loosely because they're beautiful. Like I've seen
Thank
you
you.
make really dope stitch work of slogans, and your accessories are so beautiful, but your memes, they're great, but they're so educational and sometimes completely outrageous, like
Yeah,
the dab one. Who was it that was covered in blood in
the
that
Kylie
picture?
Jenner one.
The Kylie Jenner one.
I love that meme so much.
So, can you tell us a little bit about sorry, mid cough. That was not a weed cough at all, unfortunately. Okay. So your graphics that you make and your memes that you make, can you tell us about the impact that some of them have had?
Yeah, it's definitely kind of nuts to see like people we used to aspire to in either the advocacy or just like streetwear or like cannabis culture resharing or like commenting, especially because social media was such a point of contention in the
Mm-hmm.
beginning of our growth. um it's like crazy to think now in 2022 that we can be so public on social media, and there was such a need for anonymity when we first started,
Mm-hmm.
um that it was kind of seen as not lame, but like you were like anti the true community and culture for being on social media because you were exposing to the public
Mm-hmm.
something that's like so private and sacred and also not
Yeah.
legal. um but now everybody is everywhere on social media, so it feels like we helped normalize sharing those experiences.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, creating relatability. There's a lot of, whenever we get orders and I realize they're like from states we've never been in, I realize like there's some lonely women stoners out there
Yeah.
who are looking for the community that we were once looking for as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And
And
you've also been, and you've worked for quite a few different cannabis entities or
yeah,
consulted. So you've also had the opportunity to create content for pages with millions of followers
yeah,
and really shake up the conversations that are happening on the internet about cannabis.
yeah, it's definitely been fun to be in situations with such a large audience, and be able to put out content that I wish existed when I was a young like cannabis media consumer.
Yeah.
Um but there's like so much work. Like the major weed community is like pretty not chill.
Yeah.
Like for lack of better words.
Yeah, the industry is definitely going through a lot. I would say the nation, the world,
Yeah,
everyone is going through
exactly.
a
And
lot.
they're just like so vocal, and I'm
Hmm.
like, I weed w- I get so confused as to how they become so aggressive and like non-inclusive.
Well, yeah, well, let's talk about that. I mean, part of advocacy, and your advocacy is that you're a woman doing it, and it's already a plant that is stigmatized, that has a bad reputation, but now let's throw into the fact that you're a woman.
Yeah.
How does that impact your work?
It's like I complain about it a lot. It's not fun, but I did have a meltdown like maybe like 9 months ago where I was like crying on the phone to my mom, and I was like, I hate being a woman in weed. Like this sucks. But then she reminded me that like it does, but we put ourselves in this situation so that it won't suck for other women in
Hmm.
weed. And I've had such cool opportunities through different jobs to have interns and employees who are also women in weed, and make their experiences so not like mine were.
Yeah.
Which is really fun. Like, the way I compare it is like people who are introduced to dabbing through a Puffco
Mm-hmm.
and not through like a hot knife in like a college like frat basement.
With a dirty
You
dab
know?
rig.
I'm like, wow,
And
you know safe access, and
yeah.
that's like all I've ever aspired to in this space was creating safe access and like getting people the fuck out of jail.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely. I love it. Pussy weed is for the people. So, what would you say are some tips that you would want to give a young girl who's watching Pussy Weed, who
yeah.
wants to be an advocacy, that knows that this plant is helping them and they want to shout it from the rooftops? What advice would you give them?
Just start getting involved in anything that you can, and like, especially if you're not in a legal state right now,
Mm-hmm.
like start conversations. Like if you're at a school or like you live in a town, like
Mm-hmm.
see what kind of meetups are happening. Like that's how I first got into like the larger New York scene. Was I was on Facebook groups and I was like, oh, let's see if there's any like cannabis groups. And then there was this like one, I think there was like 4 people in this page, and then one person was posting about this panel that they had heard about, and then I went and then I met all the women grow people, and I was like, oh my god, women grow exists. And then I like, you know, kind of changed everything.
Yeah.
So I feel like don't take for granted the resources and like platforms that already exist.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's people out there like you.
Mm-hmm.
And like reach out.
Absolutely. We're here for advice. We're here to
Yeah.
talk. And speaking of advice, if you haven't already checked out the Guide to Advocacy, check it out. It's available on my website. It's a free ebook download, and it gives great advice on how you can get started today with your advocacy journey if that's something that you're interested in. Thank you so much to Natasha for coming through today, hanging out with us, and sharing some gems. Hope to catch you at the next one.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, for sure. Peace.